Morning, everyone. Did God create the universe or did he become it? Well, as Dharmadas would say, the answer is he became it. Because and then Dharmadas would say, next question. But the truth of it is, as the Bible itself tells us, there wasn't anything made that was made without God. God, as Swami Kriyananda would say, didn't have any other raw materials to use except his own consciousness. And so every atom of creation is permeated, it's enlivened, it's animated with that consciousness of God. Even physics tells us that we move through an energy soup. There's cosmic rays, there's radio waves, there's all kinds of energy happening right now in this room. Everywhere we walk, everywhere we look, there's energy. If you can think of that energy soup, as scientists call it, as a God soup. We are swimming in God. And everything that we do has, for every action, there's the equal and opposite reaction. I had an interesting experience with that a year or two ago in the summer, very hot day, and I decided I'm going down to the community swimming pool. And for some reason, there was not another soul in sight. I had the whole pool to myself. And because the water was still, except for me, I could see the result of every movement I made in the water. And so when I pushed off, I saw all the ripples in front of me. I saw the equal and opposite reaction of everything that I did. And I thought, we move through the air and we're creating all that ripple effect just the same way, but we don't see it because it's the air. And when we act in this world, we're creating ripple effects. It's called karma, but we don't see it. Even our thoughts create ripple effects. A friend showed me the most adorable little video clip that I've seen in ages. And it was this little boy, and afterwards I asked her, who was this kid? And she said, yes, I asked the same question. And he was the child of parents who had been watching a motivational video. And so he had memorized this part of the video, I guess. And my friend said, and he kind of ad-libbed and added some of his own. And if I can, I'm going to paste it on Facebook or something so everybody can see it. Anyway. Well, there you go then. But I'm still going to talk about it. And this little boy says, "What are you practicing?" Have you seen this? What are you practicing? Worry? Anger? Fear? Because whatever you practice, you're going to get really good at, because we practice to get good at something. So I won't spoil any more of it for you, but because we're going to watch it. But the idea is so perfect. Let's practice divine love. Someone, as we're walking by, trips us. We fall flat on our face. Are we going to grab that person and shake them and be angry and think, oh my God, you're just the worst person and I'll never forgive you? Or are we going to say, you are an instrument of my karma? It was my karma that caused me to fall. It wouldn't matter who that person was. It was our own karma. See how it depersonalizes it. It takes it out of us and them and the bad guys versus the good guys. It becomes this cosmic learning experience. And the way that we can get out of this game, the game of realizing who we really are, because God became the universe, He became us, He became everything that we see and interact with, every person. The way we get out of that, not knowing that, not realizing that, is by diving deep. I had an interesting experience. This was many years ago. We visited a beautiful, pristine, tropical beach. And there was a wonderful reef that protected the shore. And so for, I don't know how far out, maybe a mile out, the water was just 30 to 50 feet deep, tons of beautiful tropical fish, beautiful vegetation, crystal clear water. You could just swim and swim and swim and snorkel and just see all this beauty. Of course, on the sandy beach itself, there were these little microscopic bugs that they called no-see-ums. And they would just chew you to bits. You know, you just had to wear this, Avon Skin So Soft. It was the only product that would protect you. It was just this greasy, slick stuff that they couldn't penetrate. Anyway, at the edge of the reef, so after many days of exploring this beautiful reef, we went outside of the reef. And suddenly, there was this wall. The ocean dropped into blue blackness. You couldn't even fathom how deep it was. You had no idea what was down there. And my instinctive reaction was to backpedal. It was so vast. And I felt so small, like the Irish prayer, please God, protect me. My boat is so small and the ocean is so big. But that is a metaphor for what our consciousness is like. We play on the surface of our consciousness. We do all the mundane things. We go to school, we go to work, we do the shopping, we do the laundry, we do the cooking and the cleaning and the buying of the food, and it's just all this superficial activity, year after year after year. But just beyond all that activity is the depth of spirit. And if we just get a glimpse of it, sometimes we go, oh, that's too big, that's too vast for me. But we have to work up our courage to face that depth of spirit and to go into it, to explore it. You know, when we go to school and we get our textbooks for the year, and they're big and they're heavy, and we leaf through them and we think, oh my God, how am I ever going to get through this? What is this? What is this chemistry and science? And and literature, it just seems so vast. And then at the end of the year, we flip through the book and go, oh, yeah, got all that. Okay, what's next? We can't be afraid. The only thing holding us back, Yogananda said, is our lack of spiritual adventurousness. We need to go on the adventure. We need to have the courage, the faith, the trust in God to relax and enjoy the adventure, not to be afraid of it, not to think, oh, what do I have ahead of me? More bills, more health problems, more this, more that. No, think every day I am getting closer to God. Every day, through His grace, I am learning and I am growing. And we need to have this imperturbable attitude. I was thinking of Swami Kriyananda one time in India. I was with him in his office, and he was at the computer writing a book. And I was standing there doing something. And suddenly the door burst open, and one of the young monks came racing in, crying, "Fire, fire!" And I remember Swami looked up at him, and he said, "Okay, well, let me finish my thought." And he did. He finished writing his sentence. We packed up the computer, and we left. All in this calm flow of energy. He didn't dash up and knock the computer to the floor and run around in circles a few times and dash out the door and then, oh, I forgot my computer, and dash back. And nothing like that. It was just this centeredness. And if we can face everything that happens to us as coming from God, and with that sense of centeredness, we will be in joy. And we will be able to plumb the depths of spirit that awaits all of us. That depth of bliss, of security, of joy. This world needs our faith, just as I was talking about swimming and seeing the ripples that were created by my actions. We can help this world, not by our fear, not by our agitation, not by our restlessness. We can help this world through our meditation practice, through our sense of spiritual adventure, by going deep in spirit. God bless you.
If any of you have noticed, we are not Nayaswami Jayanti, who was scheduled to do Sunday service today. This marks 2 weeks in a row where someone who was going to give the talk was sick and couldn't be able to be here to do that. But anyway, it's a joy to be with you, and we're sorry that she couldn't be here. But this is a beautiful subject, and I want to continue the thoughts that Nirmala was sharing and go a little deeper with them. And also to follow on a thought that I shared just at the end of last year, the Sunday that fell right before New Year's Day. I was suggesting that we look at this year of 2018 as a pilgrimage, as a walk with Master, a walk with the divine. And there's a depth in that, and this reading today speaks to it, that God became the universe is becoming the universe all the time, continuously, and that becoming is a becoming of love, which is a beautiful segue to the affirmation today, because it's easy to think that it's just an abstraction, that it's just a kind of machine that's moving. You know, the planets are swirling around and they're held in their orbit by the forces of the sun and the other planets, and they're influencing, and they are in turn being influenced by this cosmic movement. And it may just seem like, oh, well, that's just that out there. But all that out there is actually a reflection of, or a symbol of, the deeper realities that are inside. And so if we think of the example that Nirmala, or the image that Nirmala was giving of the ocean and the depths of the ocean, we see that depth is moving through us, and that it lives in us and it expresses itself outwardly. I have to segue for a moment to the ocean and the actual experience of it, a couple of experiences of it. Because as she mentioned, we got curious to go out to the edge of the reef, and I, of course, had to go down and explore it. You know, I wanted to see where are we going here? What do we got? What is this? And so I went down as deep as I could go on one breath. We were not scuba diving, we were snorkeling. And I don't know. I would like to think that I went 30 feet. I probably went 15 and wished it was 30. But I just remember turning around. We had gotten these little disposable underwater cameras, you know, little plastic things that you could take underwater and shoot with film. And so I remember going down and looking back up and shooting some pictures of Nirmala from the depths, looking back up, and she was floating on this little postage stamp of a raft above, and it was very sweet. It was enjoyable, but it was interesting. And I will also echo what she said, that there is this gravity, and I don't mean the gravity that made the apple land on Newton's head. I mean, there's this gravitas, there's this sense of, whoa. When you come to something like that, or you come to a view, I mean, it can be awakening in a inspirational way, but it can also be like, I had no idea. And that having no idea initially, as she mentioned, can be a little freaky. It can be like, and we kind of backpedal or do whatever we do. But eventually it becomes this, oh, okay, so now what? What's next? What's the next step? And so if we think of the pilgrimage of this year, we don't know what the year holds. That's part of the adventure, is what's around the corner, what's next month, what's next summer, what's next fall, etc. And we have to take the journey in little steps. And thinking of the example she gave of, you start the year, and I remember, and I think I've mentioned this too, you start the year in school, and my instinct was always to go flip to the end. Okay, what's at the back of the book? Come on, let's see, what do we got here? Whoa, that's a little over the top of what I know. But I was very curious. You look to where you're headed. What is it? What is there? But if you take it one page at a time, then this massive book that just seems like it's, oh my God, this is just way out there, way beyond. Then it's like, oh, well, I can do a page. Even if I struggle with that page, I can at least do a page. And then you do another page the next day, or a few more pages, etc. And it's like one pace at a time, one step at a time. We learn and we see. I want to share a slightly different angle of that example of Swami Kriyananda with the fire, because I was not present in the home right at that moment, but I had my own little drama with regard to that. I was teaching a class, but it was kind of between a class and an initiation. I mean, it was a very sacred moment. We were meditating so we had the introduction to the class. Now the entire group was meditating. So the room was perfectly still. And I hear this thump, 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 thump. Somebody's coming down the stairs. Now, and I, cracked my little eye enough to see that something was happening, because I knew something was happening. I could feel that something was up. And the person coming down the stairs was someone that I knew perfectly well what was happening in the room. There was no doubt. And there was this little pause at the bottom of the stairs, and then pad, 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 pad across the floor, and this little whisper in my ear that said, "There's a fire over at your house. I thought you would want to know." And was like, "Oh, yes, I do want to know. Thank you. How would you like to continue the class?" "Yes, okay, I'll do it." So I went a little faster than pad, 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 pad. I went shooting out the door. But it's interesting to think, because looking at what Swamiji did, Swamiji was in the middle of a flow. The flow of words, of ideas, of thoughts and vibrations was moving through his mind, moving through his body in the form of him typing at the keyboard, and he could type like the wind. I mean, when he got going, 70 words a minute was nothing for him. He could type as fast as you could talk. He was flying. So for somebody to just come blasting through the door, and they really did. I mean, it was just about off the hinges. It's a little shocking. And yet he was so deep in the flow of what he was doing that he just looked up and, as Nirmala said, "Well, let me finish my thought," or chapter, or whatever it was. He went on for a while. I mean, it wasn't like he may have still been there by the time I got there. He did not deny the reality of what was presented to him. That's one of the points I want to make. The signal came. There's a fire. Okay. Fine. I'm going to keep going with what I'm doing because it is important. He knew from his own experience that if you miss that flow, it can be gone forever, or it can take a long time for it to come back again. So I'm going to stay with what I'm doing. He evaluated in that moment, okay, yes, there's a fire, but he spent a lot of time in California where if your house is burning, you do something about it now. In India, okay, there's a fire. Look, the house is not going to burn down because the house is made of concrete. So, the wires in the walls may burn up. The wire under the driveway may burn up. And I have to say, it was exciting. I mean, literally and figuratively. Watching this thing go up, this black smoke, I mean, this cable was beefy. It was impressive, I have to say. It was quite a show when it happened. And watching the guys go climbing the power pole in bare feet with the big loppers. And for them, it's very cause-effect. It's like, okay, big fire. Guess what? We disconnect your house. That's what we do. Clip, 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 clip. Wire, power, 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 neutral, ground, done. It's like, you are now disconnected. Our problem is solved. You figure out what your problem is. We're moving on, except that they wanted a tip. But anyway, they didn't, this was the fire department. They didn't bother doing anything to put out the fire. They just disconnected the house from the neighborhood so we wouldn't cause anybody else any trouble. So anyway, it was interesting. But I appreciated that ability to stay in the moment. And that's part and parcel of being on a pilgrimage. We stay in the moment. We don't lose sight of where we're going, but we don't lose sight of where we are either. both of those things have to be kept in perspective, in balance to each other. I wanted to share something with you that some of you may know. And for those of you who, or I may be reminding some of you of this, at the time it was to me an important fact. Now, as the years have grown distant, it's fallen into its perspective. But when I was about 3 or 4 years old, one fine day, I suppose it was a sunset, probably in Pennsylvania, because that's where we lived at the time. We were watching the sun go down, and I very cogently explained, in the language of a 4-year-old, I suppose, at the time, because that's how old I was, that, it's my job to make sure that the sun sets when it sets and rises, of course, in the morning when it rises. That's my job. I just wanted to be clear about that. And, my mom took that in, and I assume that my twin sister as well, although she probably with a more energetic response. But it was fascinating to note that, and then later on I delegated that responsibility, just to be clear. You gotta learn how to, otherwise it's exhausting. Every day you gotta make sure the sun rises and sets at the right time. And oh my goodness, it's a big deal. It's a big job. But it's interesting because we have this vast universe. A beautiful Christmas present came to us of nebulae and galaxies, in these unbelievably beautiful configurations. And you're looking across these distances that you can't even conceive of how big they are and how far away they are. It's just extraordinary. And God became all of that. And the sunset and the sunrise and the beautiful clouds and wind and landscapes and all of it. And you don't hear, if God was standing next to you and you're looking at that, you visualize this for a second. Is God going to sort of elbow you and go, hey, I did that. That's pretty good, huh? What do you think? Come on, isn't it good? Isn't it beautiful? It speaks of itself. There's no sense of, hey, I did a pretty good sunset yesterday. What about it? You going to paint that? Or are you going to do something with it? It's the whole world is waiting for us to understand what is the true nature of my being. And that true nature is divine love. And that true nature is moving through our fingers and our voices and our hearts and hands, our lives, our eyes, our thoughts and ideas. We, all of us, can catch ideas like Master, like Swami, like any of the great ones, to share with the world, to bless the world with. We have to be open to those, and we have to receive them, and we have to act on them and channel them in a positive way, in an energetic way. But we, all of us, have that potential. And so in this year, and it's just begun, but we're beginning to take step by step by step. Let us act as instruments for those high ideals and for the beautiful inspiration that God is trying to live through all of us, and tune into it in each other. And after Sunday service today, we'll share some inspiration and some thoughts about the pilgrimage we're going to take to India in the fall, and we're inviting any of you who want to come, obviously, on that, to come. But even if you want to just come to the satsang today and just enjoy that concept, we'll show a few slides and then we'll share some thoughts. And it's a beautiful way to look at our lives. Whether we take a specific pilgrimage to a specific place or not, all of us are walking through this year. Let us bring God and the great ones with us at every step along the way.